Hello and most welcome to 1971. We'll have a look at David McNeill, make another chance at him. And the article, there will be a link in the description, is called Growth Points from the Very Beginning. The acronym will be GP, not to be confused with the general practitioner, allmänläkare. But let's see here. Let's start. Early humans formed language units consisting of global and discrete dimensions of semiosis in dynamic opposition. Oh, groove points. Groove points, the GP. At some point, gestures gained the power to orchestrate actions, manual and vocal, with significances other than those of the actions themselves, giving rise to cognition framed in dual terms. However, our proposal emphasizes natural selection of joint gesture speech, not gesture first in language origin. Across 10 timescales across them are Bibb and Bickerton. Good old RBIB. In the call for contributions to this special issue, post the following puzzle. Did proto-language consist of units, each having the semantic scope of a single word, such as a noun or verb in present-day languages, or of holophrastic words, each with a synthetic scope of modern sentences. Holophrastic. What words? We argue that the holophrasis versus compositionality issue can be explored from an entirely novel perspective if co-verbal gesturing is fully taken into account. Our concern is with the evolution of the language system in which imagery and codified linguistic forms are two aspects of an utterance. Two aspects. Two. They are two. Our claim is that this required a new mode of cognition. A new mode of cognition. Left and right hemisphere in concordance. We claim that gesture, or more broadly speaking, global imagistic thinking, is a fundamental aspect of the human language system, and that an adequate account of human language evolution must posit as the end state of the evolutionary process a system that integrates integrates compositional linguistic units and embodied global synthetic imagistic thinking. This in turn constrains possible evolutionary trajectories, which we explore. Speech synchronized gestures offer insights into the mental processes that modern day language use engages. The nature of those processes suggests that what might have enabled proto-language, proto-phenomena, proto-language, in modern humans, these gestures are integral components of language, not merely accompaniments. They are semantically and pragmatically co-expressive with speech, not redundant, not un supplément.
Supplément.
Non. Pourquoi pas? Non. Sont intégrales. They are frequent. About 90% of spoken utterances in descriptive discourse are accompanied by them and occur in similar form across speakers of many languages. Many languages. Languages. We've observed such gestures in speakers of more than 20 cultures, including so-called high gesture cultures, for instance, Napolitanian. An inference to be drawn from observations of ubiquitous universal co-verbal gesturing is that thinking in terms of language utilizes two cognitive modes at once. Analog imagery, visual, spatial, motoric, and discrete categorical linguistic forms. Linguistic forms. In the following famous passage, Wundt, a century ago, expressed a similar perspective concerning the mental processes on which we focus. From a psychological point of view, the sentence is both a simultaneous and a sequential structure. It is simultaneous because at each moment it is present in consciousness as a totality, even though the individual subordinate elements may occasionally disappear from it. It is sequential because the thing configuration changes from moment to moment in its cognitive condition as individual constituents move into the focus of attention and out again, one after another. Wundt speaks of sentences, but as we explain below, synchronized co-expressive gestures and speech constitute this duality, permitting us to observe it directly. 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 Gesture and speech, two simultaneous modes of semiosis.
Symbiosis.
Symbiosis. Semiosis. What? Semiosis. How can we bear without it? Figure 1 illustrates synchronous co-expressive speech and gesture in narration. The speaker had just watched a cartoon and was recounting it to a listener from memory. We explained that the task was storytelling and did not mention gesture. Gesture. The speaker was describing an event in which one character, Sylvester, the cat, attempted to reach another character, Tweety, the bird, beep, beep, by climbing up the inside of a drain pipe.
Drain pipe.
Drain pipe to a window where Tweety perched. The speaker said, and he goes up through the pipe this side, this time, co-expressively with up her hand rose, with through her fingers spread outward to create an interior space. The upward movement and the opening of the hand were simultaneous, and listen to that, synchronized, very important. If they are not synchronized, or the level of synchronicity makes for the fractal transferal, with up through, the linguistic package that carried the related meanings, the prosodic emphasis on through, highlighting interiority, is matched by the added complexity of the gesture, the spreading and upturning of the fingers, the fingers.
Fingers.
What we mean by co-expressivity here is this joint highlighting of the ideas of rising and interiority, plus the joint contribution to communicative dynamism. And here we have a figure, gesture combining entity, upward movement and interiority in one single symbol. And this is synchronized and simultaneous. And it's the level of synchronization and simultaneity that makes for the meaning. It goes hand in hand, as Barbara Twarsky once showed, with the spoken language. However, note also the difference between the two types of semiosis. Semiosis.
Semiosis.
Yes.
Semiosis.
Semiosis. Speech componentializes the event. I like that phrase. Directed path up, plus the idea of interiority through. This analytic segregation further requires that direction and interiority be concatenated to obtain the composite meaning of the whole, No concatenation is required. Meaning determination moves from, and listen now, from whole to parts, global to local, not from parts to the whole. The effect is a uniquely gestural way of packaging meaning. Something like rising hollowness. Thus, speech and gesture, co-expressive but not redundant, represent one event climbing up inside the pipe. Inside the pipe. In two forms, analytic, combinatoric, and global, synthetic, at the same instant. It happens simultaneously, no longer one by one, no longer linear, but one and one all in one. The kind of gesture we refer to is gesticulation. Gesticulation. This is a gesture that is incomplete without speech accompaniment. Other types of gesture also may be part of communication, but relate to speech in different ways. In different ways. These differences are summarized in Kendon's continuum, first arrayed and named as such in McNeill. Kendon's continuum: spontaneous gesticulation, language slotted, pantomime, emblems turning into signs. As one goes from gesticulation to sign language, the relationship of gesture to speech changes. Changes. The obligatory presence of speech declines, language-like properties increase, socially regulated signs replace self-generated form meaning pairs. It goes from gesticulation or gesticulation to more in the vicinity of pantomime or sign language. Language slotted gestures have a different timing relationship from gesticulation with speech.
Speech.
With speech. For example, in he goes, a gesture synchronizes with a momentary pause in speech, a vacant grammatical slot, a vacant grammatical slot.
Slot.
A vacant grammatical slot, an empty absence, for to be filled with absence of the hand side. Here, gesture substitutes for speech. An emblem is a culturally established morpheme or semimorpheme, such as the OK sign and others. Others. Emblems can occur with or without speech. Without speech. Quiet. Pantomime is gesture without speech, often in sequences and usually comprised of simulated actions. Sign languages are full, socially constituted, non-spoken languages. Even though gesticulation, hereafter gesture, is only one point on the continuum, it dominates gesture output in storytelling, living space description, academic discourse, and conversation. Commonly, 99%, if not all gestures in such contexts count as gesticulation. Gesticulation. Co-occurrence of gesticulation and speech involves simultaneous analogistic and categorical linguistic semiosis. The simultaneity of unlike semiotic modes reveals a double essence of language, a term that Saussure, in notes discovered only recently, introduced to replace the langue parole contrast. Although Saussure did not consider gesture, we propose that gesture is appropriate to his concept. The double essence is specifically carried by gesticulation plus linguistic encoding in cognition. In cognition. Spontaneous gestures and encoded linguistic forms naturally contrast semiotically. 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 Gesture is global and synthetic. Linguistic code is analytic and combinatoric. Combinatoric. Global refers to the fact that the determination of meaning in a gesture proceeds top down. The dimensions of meaning of the figure 1 gesture. The hand means Sylvester, motion upward, ascent, the fingers outspread, interiority. Like the drain pipe, the drain pipe. Are determined by the meaning of the whole. Sylvester as rising hollowness.
Sylvester. Meow.
Meow, meow. These dimensions are identifiable as parts only in the meaning landscape of the whole. Of the whole needs to be included. They have no independent existence. It is not that gesture lack meaningful features, but that features have no categorically contrastive significance. Gesture features of the kind we are describing are in a globally determining context. What an engulfing sentence. Globally determining context could be the last one. What do you say?
Globally. Globally. Determining. 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 Context.
Global.
Page. 120.
One. Although Saussure here occurs as a contributor, I will still use Saussure as a sort of, well, archetype for the thinking that is so rather problematic. He is ignoring gesture, and by doing that, he do not see language as both parts, partial, linear, one after another, and global. And that in reality, it's a combinatory effect. The gesture doesn't have a life of its own, but neither does language has, or spoken language, a life of its own. Together, that make up language. Benjamin K. Bergen proved that, or he was the first to really expose that to the lay people. The motor cortex is constantly present in all speech, and it points to globality. The gesture goes all over the whole sentence, Sylvester climbing through the drying pipe, through the interiority. It is not a time gesture, but it is synchronized, and it has to be more or less simultaneous. The more simultaneous you get it in, there is a good example in my own view. Hitler imitated Mussolini, but he never managed to synchronize the way he did. He was not of birth an Italian, and I would say maybe that's one of the reasons his gestures are simply a bit off. Not too much, still good enough for the audience he had, but they are a bit off. That makes for less meaning. We do not find molecular meaning or atomistic meaning, which is called morphemic meaning by Chomsky and all linguists, I would say. It is also a good pointer to the right hemisphere that's missed out. Because gestures sometimes are not visible, we think that language enough can be enough by its own. And then we assume the left hemisphere take only. That strengthens it. No, gestures are constantly there, although sometimes hardly visible or just faintly visible. They are not 100% visible, but they are always there. The nerve ends are there, the muscular activity is there. It's the scale of the synchronization, the skill that makes for the whole meaning, and thereby disappears the idea of atomistic meaning, morphic meaning. I think in linguistic is still the current idea. It's completely dead in neurology and science of cognition. But I assume it's still alive in linguistics. It is constantly global, not local. And think of it. Would reality be local? Could Sylvester and little Tweety be understood without a context outside of the cartoon? Or somebody telling the story? No, it can only be singular if there is a global take. A whole world of birds out there, fables about cats, colors, cartoonist, humor, even the whole of Disney World. Everything is participatory in the singular meaning. It's not enough with this cut-off cartoon. And we already know that. We always already assume that. The global take is pointed by the gestures. And speech go hand in hand with gestures. And these are the two aspects of the utterance. You can go to page 118 if you may. And in the second paragraph, which is, the first paragraph is very short, we will ignore the use of mental processes. They haven't encountered Wittgenstein. He said in a superior mode, not meant that way, but who can all read Wittgenstein? We know about it, at least. Let's see. The nature of those processes suggests what may have enabled proto-long language. Something we went into with Barbara Tversky, how language developed. She used cartoons, but is also the movement. When making depictions on the cave wall with your hands, that movement is also a gesture. Although the only thing we see in the aftermath is the drawings that remain, not the person doing it. It is sort of a proto-speech, and it does the same thing. The person talking at the same time is it's a pretty good guess that what that would happen. And he would say, oh, here we take the hunter out of the flock of the bisons, isolate and recontextualize. So see drawing and images as a sort of gestures, because they were all in the beginning created by gestures. And there is another very nice effect of this. Language becomes less transcendental. It becomes much more into our habits, our doings, our criterions, the use of language. And although mental is meant here, I would say it becomes much less interior. Why? Yes, because most frequently the gestures are absolutely obvious, visible, and they are still there to a diminished extent in every singular opportunity. If we go further down, we can read, they are semantically and pragmatically co-expressive with speech, not redundant. And isn't it odd? It's a nice coincidence here that Wittgenstein used to think they were completely redundant. He meets about this professor in mathematics, economics from northern Italy, mentioned in the beginning of PI. And he gives him a gesture. And that sets him off to the right path. To see that meaning in itself is something of a doing, an activity. And if we go down to the bottom of this page, if we may, oh weird, I can't track that. All the way down to the bottom of the page, if you may. The upward movement and the opening of the hand were simultaneous and synchronized with the up through, the linguistic package that carried the related meanings. I would even further say it's the simultaneity and the synchronization itself that makes for meaning. Meaning is not inside of the head or inside the words. It is not inside the hands. It's out there and inside at the very same time. It's not possible to cut one from the other. So they are combined globally with the whole world, and the globality, it's what makes it possible to have a local meaning. That is a meaning step by step, where every word is perceived to be separate in some way. But they are all coming from a global take, everything together. So this is the quantum relativity of language and gesture at the same time. Kalle Lundahl, please come in.
Thank you.
And sorry, I need to remind you about the microphone as well. We need to hold it. Sorry about that.
So this is important to understand. So the cat, meow, is going up. and then through the pipe. So
Yeah.
it's let me show it here. So this it's the what this is the right hand. Right hand is going up because the cat is going up, while this hand, the left hand, is going down because it symbolizes true. Is it correct?
The palm up and the fingers up has an aspect of interiority, and the hand literally goes up. So it's it's a combination of upward movement and the fingers being up. They create a sort of a container. I think it's called a container by Lakoff Johnson. And that container, in this case, together with the words, speak to interiority of the drain pipe. The poor, poor old Sylvester goes through.
Let me see. Okay, but okay, so okay. So this hand doesn't have any purpose at all.
No, it's not engaging, and
okay.
may add something else.
Mm.
This gesture is not a, so to speak, standardized gesture. It evolves naturally, but it can still be understood.
No, but I think that that hand should have been cut off.
Oh yeah, maybe, yeah. Cut the hand off.
Cut the hand off.
It's the Babylonic law of Hammurabi.
Okay, then I get it. So it's up and it's a container at the same time.
Yeah, at the same time.
And the insideness.
Yeah, the insideness of the drain pipe, where Sylvester, he wants to surprise Tweety when Tweety is standing on in the window.
Let me see. There was one interesting phrase here. Here. Meaning determination moves from whole to parts, not from parts to whole.
No.
That is, but how do they reach this conclusion? Let me see. How do they reach this conclusion?
You ask me?
No, both you and the authors of this paper. It's
Well, the one proof is what coming from Benjamin K. Bergen, that the motor cortex, there is always movement. This is one of the scientific proof. There is no speech without movement. Zero. It doesn't exist. And I think that is an assumption that everybody has, that you can speech without move anything.
Yes,
it's not true.
Yes, the idea of Pantarei a little bit.
That's one thing. And the gesture, it is not iconic, emblematic. It comes natural when you speak. And it seems to be for the whole sentence, is not coming by one word or one part of the sentence, it's coming for the whole sentence.
Yes, absolutely. It needs to go from whole to parts, and here we can also think about C.V.M. Rosen's homonymy, whole, with a W parenthesis. So the W is there. You can include it or not to include it.
Yeah. I think that's a good one.
But what would be the hole in this case would actually be the drain pipe. Do you understand? The hole that is
the
without the W.
movement and the upward movement interiority is incredibly important for the understanding of the whole sentence. And it's also the one listener needs to do this as well, as shown by Barbara Tversky.
Yes, indeed. Interesting.
A good guess. I don't know. This is just my guess, so don't take it too serious. I don't think Ian McGilchrist is aware of this, but I don't know.
Yes, I think that Saussure is very problematic because since he when you remove the gestures, you also remove the observer.
Yeah,
because gesture
there's
stands
no
actually for the
participation.
observer.
There's no participation. You don't do anything.
You have only the so-called objective world.
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the observer.
yeah. You got it. You got it. Yeah, that's great, Kalle. Thank you. That makes me really happy.
Well, let's perhaps end there.
Why? Thank you very much for participating on a short notice. Thank you for getting into it so quickly. It is a difficult and very different. It's rather more different than difficult, I say. And of course, those old expressions, mental and psychological, are still here. But we shouldn't be too hard on them. We know better. Sylvester Day is also coming up. And I say thank you very much, Kalle Lundahl. Thank you everyone for participating. Have a very beautiful day, evening, or night, wherever you are. Bye-bye for now.